Good morning, everyone. My name is Stacy Varghese, and I'm the Director of Leadership Annual Giving and Engagement at St. John's University. Our guest today is Alexander Katz, 17CPS, a professional baseball player, Olympian, and founder of Stadium Custom Kicks. Stadium Custom Kicks allows you to choose your footwear specifically to your sport of choice and then custom it to one of their unique designs, or you can create your own. Interviewing him is New York's lead sportscaster and play-by-play announcer for St. John's University, Ralph Bednarczyk. Ralph, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Hey, Alex, it's great to see you and all of your success that you've had. Alex, let's start off. Describe a little bit further for people that maybe aren't super sports fans, what Stadium Kicks does currently on a day-to-day.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me. And a little bit about Stadium Custom Kicks. It's basically a custom footwear company that, basically hand paints designs on already made sneakers. So we don't actually produce sneakers. We take the basic stock sneakers from Nike or Adidas or cleats, and we paint on them. So basically, footwear is our canvas, and we could pretty much do any design imaginable. It's pretty cool. People like to get pretty creative with the designs.
And Alex is a former St. John's baseball player, St. John's alum. You won a Big East championship with St. John's in 2015, playing 3 years, 2013, 14, 15, before being drafted by Major League Baseball, and is currently a Major League Baseball minor leaguer. So we will get into that and amidst all other things. So you've juggled a lot. Alex, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur for those folks that are either business students or in 5 years or under out of college and figuring out kind of what their next steps are, or how do you consider yourself? Are you a business owner? I see you're a founder as well. I guess you're an entrepreneur. How do you see yourself from this business aspect?
Yeah, from the business side, definitely an entrepreneur. I basically started with nothing, basically created something from scratch. Was there from the beginning, and it's still a business that's growing, and I'm pretty much doing a little bit of everything. We obviously have a great team here, and great people who are helping me run the company and build the company. But definitely from the business standpoint, consider myself an entrepreneur.
What's the inspiration? You're a baseball player. I see that you were a sneakerhead growing up. That basically means a guy that probably has 50 shoes, 50 pairs of sneakers in his closet. What was the inspiration? It's always fascinating to hear about how people took maybe a passion of theirs and have made it a business and a life.
Yeah, so it definitely combines three of my favorite things. Obviously, I love baseball and all sports. I'm a big fan of artwork, and I love footwear. I love sneakers. So I think it's a perfect fit for me. But really, the way I got into it was I was with the White Sox in 2017, and they were pretty strict with color regulations. Obviously, the White Sox are just black and white, but as a minor leaguer, we pretty much had to only wear 95% or more black on our cleats. So when I got invited to play in the World Baseball Classic, that was really, the biggest stage I played on at that point, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity to customize some cleats for myself, and basically a pair that I created for myself turned into a little side business, and was really small for a few years. Really just involved me and one or two other people, and now 2022 we have over 40 people working for us, so it's definitely grown a good amount since then. And really started as a joke. Opened up an Instagram page and had my friends follow it. Probably had 100 followers after a couple of weeks, and didn't really think anything of it. Didn't think it could turn into what it is now, but it definitely has exceeded my expectations, and I'm enjoying the ride.
Alex, you've been in the minor leagues. I think it's 6 seasons. Give us a little update about just your baseball career, because you're not just an entrepreneur, but you're an entrepreneur professional athlete too. What's your status? Last year in 2021, you were in Double-A with the Chicago Cubs. For those not familiar in baseball, that's 2 spots away from the very top of the sport pro ball. What's your status right now, Alex, with that? And also, and you're still with Team Israel, right, towards their national team qualifiers.
Yep, exactly. So last year I was in Double-A with the Chicago Cubs. That was a 1-year contract. So I haven't signed yet with the team for next year. Not sure if I'll be back with the Cubs or another team for this upcoming season. But last year was also in the Olympics with Team Israel in Tokyo. So the goal is definitely to continue to stay with and play for Team Israel. So the World Baseball Classic will be again next year, 2023. So looking forward to that. But baseball is a crazy industry. It's hard to predict the future. You could be here one day and the next day you could be somewhere totally different.
Mhm. Alex, what does your day-to-day look like? Someone that's, I guess your job, Stadium Kicks is probably a full-time and time commitment, but it's not quite yet, I guess, full-time in terms of your only income. How are you balancing all of that? Because you still do have baseball dreams, and are you doing other things on the side too, to bring you capital so you can continue to grow Stadium Kicks?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I definitely consider myself first a baseball player, and that's basically how I go about my day. I get whatever work in I need from a baseball standpoint, working out and throwing, and all the stuff I need for training for baseball, and even during the season. The baseball comes first. But what I did realize is that there's enough hours in the day, there's enough downtime where I could still be super super successful with anything else that I need to do. Right. So let's just say I work out in the morning in the off season, 2, 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes, there's still plenty of hours left in the day to do what I need to do. So pretty much every second I'm not training, I'm working on the business. So it's definitely like having multiple full-time jobs, but I enjoy it.
So let's break down kind of the anatomy, just like the anatomy of a baseball pitcher and a motion. Let's break down the anatomy of a business founder. So first, Alex, I'll start mentally. From the age basically of 18 to 21, you're at St. John's before you left for the draft, and then you came back and finished up kind of piece by piece 2 more years to finish up your final year of undergrad while you were pursuing pro ball. Tell us about kind of the for those kids that are even right now still in college, even the high schoolers and their parents that are going to watch or will watch. What kind of courses you thought were most effective for you as an entrepreneur that you took that greatly impacted you? We know real world experiences, it's immeasurable, but what did you do in school that you think was more significant than the other things?
Yeah, so I went into St. John's as a sport management major. I think I declared as soon as I could. I declared a sport management major, and obviously that's a combination of classes mostly relating to business, but obviously specific to the sports industry. But I also chose the minor, I think, starting sophomore, junior year in business. So I think, the businesses that I'm part of, I'm not just part of Stadium Custom Cakes. I'm a part of a couple other as well in the baseball aspect, in the baseball world. I think that combination of sport management and that business minor definitely helped greatly in what I do from a day-to-day standpoint. I'd say every class that I took in those fields were helpful for me in what I'm doing now. Especially the social media class that I took my last year at St. John's. I think that social media is probably one of the biggest factors in how I grew the business. It started just as a social media page, as an Instagram page, and obviously now we have the website and all of that. But just learning the different tricks and how to run it professionally, right? Because running a business social page is a lot different than running a personal page. That's probably the first class that comes to mind, and something that has directly helped me in running this business.
So you turn pro, you get drafted to the Chicago White Sox, and you decide to forego your senior year. Tell us about kind of from age 21 and a half to 25, as you're starting to get the business. It's kind of going from an idea and just kind of a side hustle. What did you do to kind of further enhance what you know about starting a business, being an entrepreneur? Somewhere you went from amateur to pro businessman, probably in that 22 to 25, particularly from a mindset standpoint. What did you do about that greatly enhanced you, especially for those kids right now watching that are also already out of college and are thinking about how to take maybe an idea that they have and trying to take that and turn it pro?
Yeah, I think to answer your question directly, it's a lot of trial and error, right? Like you you learn enough in college to get your feet wet, and it really helps bridge that gap between getting into business and starting a business, but every business is so unique, and what we're doing is very unique because there aren't really any other businesses that are doing what we're doing. There are obviously other footwear customizers, but it's not an actual like full, it's not a team of artists. It's usually just one or two people that are paying the shoes, so I'd say obviously networking is great because not only can those people be your customers, but you could also learn a lot on how they run their business, so definitely learned continue to learn, and especially in those beginning stages of business, really, learn from other people. But really a lot of it is just taking risks, and learning from your mistakes. There's always going to be mistakes, and I guess high risk, high reward. You have to be willing to take risks if you want the prize at the end of the day.
And how'd you set things up from a capital perspective? There's probably someone watching that maybe needs to get a business loan, or needs a family member to give them a 0% interest 50K loan or something like that. Or from a capital perspective, how did maybe you're doing Uber on the side while being a minor leaguer. How did you start from a capital perspective? Every business is going to be different, so you don't have a brick and mortar storefront. But how did you get from a capital perspective started, and what you remember about those times?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the first few years, the expenses were relatively low, and fortunate enough, it's pretty much a service-based business. And those first few years, the customer would send the shoes into us, so we wouldn't even have to buy inventory or stock up on shoes really. So a customer would send in their shoes, and then they pay us for the service. And obviously, that's how we made our money. So there wasn't really capital that was needed to start the business. It was relatively simple from that standpoint. It's obviously gotten more complicated over time, but fortunate enough, I've been able to save up, some capital from those first few years in business, which are allowing me to stock up on inventory, because there's some big issues now with the supply chain and getting footwear and cleats especially. So that capital that I saved up has allowed me to really stock up on inventory. But inventory is really the only expense, really. The biggest expense. Obviously we have shipping and stuff like that, but that's all paid for by the customer. So we obviously set that money aside when the customer pays. It's definitely a unique business from that standpoint, in that it's a service-based business. So not too much capital is needed to get it going.
Mm-hmm. And then I think that kind of the biggest step is to turn it from a side hustle and to take it kind of, from, it was like, a side hustle to now turn it pro or close to full time for you. I guess what were some of the big steps that you had to take, either structurally, or you had to hire people, kind of describe that process and what happened probably for you, probably around the age of kind of from 25 to 30 years old now, kind of now that where it's gone to kind of the next level.
Yeah, so the end of summer of 2019, that's when I started hiring artists to the team. And throughout 2020, we probably hired a new artist every other month or so. So let's just say we had 7 or 8 artists by 2021, and then just got better at hiring artists. Obviously the hardest part is hiring the first few artists, because it's like, what am I joining? But once we got to like 10, 15 artists and really got that brand recognition, then artists started reaching out to us, top end artists, because we don't hire, we don't just hire anybody. We hire some of the best artists, footwear artists out there. It's a special skills, and there's definitely different skills in acquired skills in painting footwear than just painting canvas. So it's not just any random artist that we're hiring. So like I said before, as we got more artists on the team, it became easier and easier to add, and we've been averaging about a new artist every month now. And that's really the only way to scale this business, because everything is done by hand. So the only way to scale the business, if we're getting more orders, then we need more artists to fulfill those orders. So right now we actually have 26 artists on the team, and obviously the goal is to keep expanding on that, but carefully, because quality control is the most important thing to us.
Mhm. How about the structure right now? So you have 40 people. Do you have, you probably hit a point where you maybe had to recruit some business partners, either for capital or their knowledge. Who are they? At some point, anybody watching this, may also realize, I'm a business owner, but that means they're gonna have to have a staff around them and other business partners. How did you go about it? Who are some of the people that you hired and what you learned kind of from that experience if you were to do it again?
Yeah, so besides our artists, we obviously have other people that are helping us. From a business standpoint, I own 100% equity of the company, so I don't have any partners with Stadium Custom Kicks, but we have 7 concept designers, which are basically graphic designers that specialize in footwear. So they draw up mock-ups and different designs on the computer, and then our artists, turn their vision into life. And some of our artists do mock-ups as well, but for some of the really detailed high-end graphic design stuff, that we use for the website and for big projects. They're in charge of that. We also had someone who helps with marketing and social media, like the TikTok pages and stuff like that, as well as our college athlete program, which actually some St. John's athletes are part of with the new NIL laws. College ambassadors are able to make money off their image and likeness. So we actually have over 250 NCAA athletes right now. It's pretty cool, and they're all ambassadors of our company. And we also have a few other people helping out, including an intern. And actually, the person who handles our TikTok and marketing, and emails, and all that was actually our intern this past summer. And then as soon as the internship went up, we hired her, which is great, because what's better than hiring someone that already has been working for you. You kind of understand the value they bring, and you have their trust, because they've already been working with you, and you see what they can do.
Oh, that's an awesome story. Alex, at some point you probably had a mentor. I'm sure, I know you have had baseball mentors, but you had to find a business mentor somewhere. I think everybody does at some point. Who has been your mentor? What have maybe they taught you? And perhaps I think the hardest thing is kind of to find a mentor. And how did you come across them?
Yeah. So I'd say a place where I got a lot of ideas and learned business from is actually from watching a lot of Shark Tank. And it's real business deals that are going on. You learn how these multi-billionaires are going about their business. They're obviously doing something right, because most people in business don't get anywhere close to the level that they're at. So it's kind of inspiring to watch Shark Tank, and there's always new episodes going on. But a specific person, I'd say Matt Holzman is the first person that comes to mind, and he was the head of marketing for Adidas baseball, and he's been in sports for a while. He's actually not too old, but he was helping me for a while, and he still does. Obviously not as involved as he was before, because he has his own things he has to do. But really smart guy, and actually a fellow St. John's baseball guy, Chris Nettle, who works for MLB, introduced me to Matt a few years ago, and Matt has been a big help ever since.
Oh, that's an awesome story. And Alex, I'm sure there's going to be some parents either with young kids or teenagers. I'm thinking about future Christmas gifts. So here it is for those parents. Alex, so what might be a business book or something that you read that was really impactful for you as an entrepreneur? If parents have a kid that have this kind of idea, what to you is just something where you said, you know what, got to read this, or a program or something that you did that at that for that young stage that they would take a lot from.
Yeah, I'd say I'm not a big book reader, but I'm a big newsletter and article reader. I like to stay up to date with things that are going on in the world, especially in business and sports. So I'm subscribed to the front office sports newsletters, email newsletters, and they link all their current articles on it and any cool info in the sports business world. So I'm not sure how often that is, but I think it's multiple times a week. But I really enjoy reading those articles, and the world is changing so much. Just in the last year and a half. Technology, business, there's so many things that are going on, and I think the name of the game in business is really staying on top of your game and staying up to date and following the trends. Because people follow trends, so you obviously you need customers, and you need people to be part of your company and obviously be consumers.
Alex, you graduated from Herrick's High School. It's obviously a very nice area, and you were in school for a degree. At some point, you told your parents, "Yeah, I want to start my own business. I don't want to, go get, maybe your parents were like, okay, no, you're going to go to law school, Alex, or you're going to go do this and get a 9 to 5 and everything like that." Certainly in my case, I certainly, had those questions posed my way. How did you, I guess, kind of explain it to them? I bet there are kids that are probably also in that same boat, as well as parents on the other end when their kid says to them, or their young adult says to them, "No, I actually don't want to go the traditional 9 to 5 route." How did you navigate that, to kind of send that message and know this is what I want to do?
Yeah, no, that was a good question. Honestly, I don't think I've ever had that conversation with my family, because ever since I was actually talking to my mom the other day about a binder that she found in one of the closets in the basement, and it was like a essay that I wrote when I was like 6 years old or 7 years old, that when I grow up I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. So as far as I can remember, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. I currently am a professional baseball player, still chasing the dream. Really never had a plan B. To me it was always having plan A's, and there's no reason for me to retire and grow and pursue the sneaker business full time. Just because I'm able to do both, and neither is holding the other one back. I'm able to train and get all my workouts in, play a full season with no distractions, and still have enough free time to run a growing business. So to me, it was always never have a plan B, and really, as far as I can remember, it was only to become a Major League Baseball player. And obviously, once I realized that minor league baseball players don't get paid much money, I needed to find something else that I could do year round. Because most minor leaguers, they find a job in the off season. I want to try to figure out something that I continue to do year round, and could be self-sufficient at some point. And I'm working on it. And to me, it's just about it's about having plan A's and going full throttle, going after all them. Not having a backup plan, going full force with your goals.
A couple of basic questions we're getting out of the chat. Alex, what's your advice right now to, let's say, a current college kid, 18 to 22, still in school, in terms of classes, what they could be doing while they are still have not yet entered into the real world yet?
Yeah, I'd say networking. You can never network enough, right? And you never know where someone's going to be in a few years. That in baseball, they were, just to keep it simple, I was already 4 years into the minor leagues, and there were guys that were just drafted, guys that never played pro ball, who maybe are now in the big leagues, Major League All-Stars, right? That's just one example, but it just goes to show that you never, just because you're here one day, you don't know where you'll be or where someone else will be another day. So never burn bridges, treat everyone with respect, and network. Be friendly, interact with people, because and help people. And I'm not someone that expects favors, but I'm the type that really understands that if you respect people and you treat people right, that it comes back to you, and people will treat you, and people will help you without you even asking them. And that's the best thing you can do. And another thing you could do is, if you have the time, get an internship. Because I think that's the best way to hire people, and I think a lot of companies are on the same page. Why hire someone outside the company when you could hire someone that's already been connected with the company and understands how the company works, and have to train them from nothing, from scratch. So I think a lot of companies do hire their interns for full-time jobs. So really network and try to get an internship. And sometimes companies will make up an internship for you, right? Because I've had 3 interns now, but we just hired one recently when our previous intern was hired by us, um, to do marketing and a paid position. So, I think that's my best advice for someone in that age range.
Mhm. Alex, and then for that next segment, let's say for those that are out of college already, but they have an idea, they just haven't acted on it yet. They've got an itch there. They're kind of maybe they're working a regular 9 to 5 job that they just don't want to do, and they want to jump ahead with whatever idea they have. What's your advice to those?
Yeah, I'd say I'd say stick with your 9 to 5 at least while that idea is really coming to life. Because it's going to be difficult to make enough money to live on your idea or your startup until it really gets moving and it gets brand recognition. That's not to say it can't happen, because anything could happen. But I'd say to play it safe, stick with that 9 to 5, and when you get home at 5, let's just say you go to bed at 10 at night, you have 5 hours every day to really grow that idea and work on it. I feel like a lot of people have ideas, but maybe they get home at 5 o'clock or they get home from their main job, they're too tired to do anything. To me, it's just the grind, it's the hustle. If you really want something, you really gotta get after it. You really gotta work hard, and most people have ideas and they don't even try to bring it to life, or people start to bring it to life and then they give up. So there's no straight road to success. It's gonna be a long, winding road, and I realize that a lot of lessons I learned in baseball I take into business, and I think that's why I've been successful in business, just because of all the life lessons I've learned from playing sports.
Final couple questions for Alex before we say goodbye on this series in the Office of Advancement and Professional Studies. Alex, you've had to make, I'm sure, a lot of basically social and life sacrifice because you're juggling basically 2 jobs with basically being a 6 month minor leaguer, then the training in the off season for that, and then of course stadium kicks. And so for those that want to open up their own business and be an entrepreneur, we're already looking at the clock of they're going to work their 9 to 5 to raise capital. Then they've got to do stuff towards building their startup on the side. Just describe, I guess, the personal sacrifice that is taken. I think that that's the thing that gets lost in the shuffle. Right? Everybody wants to get to the finish line and open up whatever business it is, but that means you're going to miss just a lot of social stuff. You're just simply not going to be available Friday night and Saturday night the way everybody else is.
Yeah, I mean, literally no days off. There's no days off. Obviously, um, most people in the world they work from Monday to Friday, a set time. Once they get home, the work stops. For me, it's pretty much nonstop, and I enjoy it. I enjoy having something to do every second that I'm out. Whether it's baseball or the business, I like to stay busy. Maybe there'll be a point where that gets old, but for now, while I'm in my 20s, and I think for the foreseeable future, that's something that I enjoy doing. So you gotta do what you enjoy. If you want that weekend off, then running your own business is probably not for you. Because if you think about it, if you run a business, most of your customers are going to be working 9 to 5s, so they're going to be customers of yours, or they're going to be calling for customer service when they're off, which means that you need to be working when they're off. So it's kind of like opposite hours.
Mhm. Alex, so what would your advice be to 22-year-old Alex Katz when he was just starting out? If you were to go back and critique him or help out the 22-year-old Alex Katz, what would you tell him that some of the the starter uppers right now that are watching would get a lot out of to learn from your own baptism by fire?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't think I have any regrets, but if I were to go back, you could always do something better if you look back. You know, um, I would say the biggest thing is really becoming good at psychology, and understanding other people better, understanding who the people are that are willing to help and the people that aren't willing to help. In business, a lot of trust, right? There's a lot of trust that's needed, you know. So I say the biggest thing is really, I it's weird because you want to keep your circle small, but you also want to network, you know. But I feel like there's a difference, you know. There's a big difference there because, you know, the people in your circle are the people you kind of trust with anything, right? Whether it's business or non-business, and the people you network with are people you kind of just are friendly with and help each other out from like a professional standpoint. So I guess understand the difference. You know, like I said before, treat everybody with respect, but really keep your circle small and understand who the good people are.
Mhm. Alex Katz, fantastic to see you again, buddy, and see your growth and development, especially off the field, and what you've done. Congrats on all your success, and we'll be watching. So if people want to get into contact with you and have any more follow-ups just about your business and how you got going, what's the easiest way they can get in touch with you that doesn't interrupt your day to day?
Probably social media. Probably social media. I try to answer as many messages on there as possible. Instagram. You can just type Alex Katz in and you'll find me on there.
Alex, awesome. Thank you so much. All the best to you. We'll certainly be watching from all of St. John's Athletics too to see where you end up in 2022 as we hope there is a baseball season.
Thanks so much, Ralph.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. That's Alex Katz. My name's Ralph Bednarczyk, and on behalf of Stacy Varghese, too, from the St. John's Office of Professional Studies and Advancement, we thank you for watching and tune in next time.